All right, welcome to another episode of Offchain Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alex Romero, and
I'm Manny, and in this episode, we'll be talking about the metaverse, what it is, where it's going, why it matters to crypto investors and anyone interested in technology.
absolutely. So, Metaverse has actually been quite the interesting news lately.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I don't know if it's related or not. I know that there was a couple of days where like Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp had shut down. Now, I don't know if that was like a permanent thing or like some areas permanently went out. I'm guessing the bigger cities didn't experience that big of an outage, but um, there's just been so much happening around that space, and yeah, it's kind of like I don't know how I feel about that yet.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like this whole year, like NFTs have been kind of the focus of the crypto industry. And so I have gotten a lot of people trying to ask me what NFTs are. And the way I describe it is actually not using, art NFTs, like which everyone has kind of seen, explode in recent years. I've kind of explained it in terms of like gaming NFTs or NFTs with utility, and there's a lot of overlap between gaming NFTs and the metaverse. So for me, it's like the metaverse stuff is just like the natural progression of where NFT technology is going. So just think digital assets and being able to take whatever digital assets you have anywhere you go. So being it's the next generation of the internet.
Right. I mean, for the most part, like I mean that makes a lot of sense, right? Because if they're trying to introduce something and you want mass adoptability,
Hmm.
you find the path of least resistance, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, it'll be gaming because it's the most complex,
Hmm.
and you figure once you master that, then you can you can proliferate into the other areas where once you have that understanding, you could, oh, I see how it applies in the medical field or how it applies in
Yeah.
construction. And so I guess, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and for me, like I recently had a conversation with someone who's like, "Oh, they've heard about blockchain and they're just getting into it." And say, "Oh, is it too late to invest?" It's like, no, it's just starting. Because like when it comes to metaverse stuff, the blockchain technology is constantly developing, and we're just seeing like the very first use cases on a large scale, and the metaverse is part of that. So it's like
Right.
if you're into the metaverse, invest now. You can only see growth, and in the future, we'll have other sectors of this industry expand out of that.
Right. And actually, like, it's interesting because as much as they're doing, I mean, they're not even expecting to have a fully launched product for probably, I think, like 5 or 10 years,
Yeah, I think he
you
said
know?
like yeah, it's like they're investing a good amount in it, but it's going to take a long time for it to really develop. But we're talking about Facebook Meta, so just to
Right.
provide context, there are other projects that are metaverse, projects kind of like Sandlot and Decentraland, which are more gaming focused. But it is the big news recently has been Facebook and their metaverse project.
Right, right. Well, I think one of the one of the big questions or like where people are like scratching their head like is, well, they went as far as saying, hey, as of today, whatever that day was,
Hmm.
we are now called Meta.
Yeah,
And then it's like, okay, Mark, you're behind all this other stuff going on, like all these research reports that have been released about how damaging it is to the youth of the world,
hmm,
um,
yeah,
and how you've been basically just doing with people whatever you want. Maybe not necessarily you specifically, but your investors,
hmm,
obviously, who you cater to. Um, but then you start questioning, like, all right, so we have right now someone who has so much grasp and literally reach into almost every one of our lives that
yeah,
has Facebook or connects, and now he's literally going beyond, right?
hmm,
Beyond social media, meta meaning beyond.
yeah.
He's going beyond, and it's like, do we really want him, having that kind of access or that much control over our lives? Like, that kind of gets
Yeah.
scary.
Well, for me, it's like it's more of a marketing campaign. It's like Facebook has like as you mentioned before had problems recently with PR, but also for good reason. It's like we had a conversation before about how in a lot of places Facebook is the internet, and how like there isn't a lot of competition when it comes to telecommunications. So the only option people have to interface with the world is through Facebook, and they use that for their own political purposes. They have like outsized power for what they are as a company. So people are very, and even in the U.S., like culturally, it's Facebook has become a boomer platform. So young people aren't really on Facebook anymore. So I think this is
Right.
his attempt to kind of gain a younger crowd, for Facebook to survive. But for me, the metaverse is much bigger than Facebook, and to have it under one umbrella, it's kind of counterintuitive to like
Yeah.
blockchain and the ethos that's behind it. So I don't
Right.
really see in it, given the amount of competition, I don't see in it uh, flourishing as they think it will. For me, it's like a
Well,
last ditch attempt.
I think you brought up a very interesting point there, which is that there whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish with Meta, it is such a huge undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
And even for a company like Facebook that has all the resources that they could want, it's not even about that. It's about having the capable minds, the manpower, the labor to do it that
Yeah,
has integrity, to do things with care and caution and not trying to rush to get through deadlines and then, that whole leaving vulnerability stuff. But and I do believe that Meta is going to end up being it's an idea
mm-hmm.
that is going to be put is going to and I understand now what Mark meant by when he says we're going to build it together. I
Yeah,
mean, he's not going to build shit because he's like pretty much done coding, I'm pretty sure.
yeah,
But um but yeah, so it's almost like if I don't know if it's open source or not. I didn't look into that. But I mean, if they're creating all the plug and play tools
mm-hmm.
that allow you to go across platforms, um, yeah, then really it's going to be on us, the developers, to create those ecosystems or to at least coordinate with other people developing in the space so that we can
Yeah,
make cohesive ecosystems out of the things that we're doing.
yeah. I do see a lot of value in it. It's like he did mention now wants to empower the creator economy, and I do see how like this play validates technology. So before that, even now, we have other companies that are getting into the space and with varying levels of like adaptability, or people wanting it or being positive about the technology. Because there has been a lot of negative press on like the decentralized version of like NFTs and digital assets. But someone like Facebook, who they're not gonna, like you said, it's going to take a long time to build, so they're thinking that far ahead. And for now, like we've been in crypto for a long time, and it hasn't. I feel like the last 2 years, it's kind of like dawned on people that it is forever. It's like it's not going away. So it's like the fact
Yeah,
that Facebook is jumping in, then say, okay, yeah, it's real. Like this is something that
right.
people can put their efforts into and have it, bear fruit in the long term. So when it comes to validation, I think it's a good step.
Right.
But I'm skeptical about you know
The parties.
yeah, yeah, exactly, like how it would affect the rest of the ecosystems. It's like I prefer to
Right.
have smaller creators and not one to try to like monopolize these systems.
Right. The one that creates the guardrails that says, nope, you can't go over that line over there. You can't go
Yeah.
over this line over here. It's like, well, what the hell's the point then? We
Exactly.
we did this to get rid of you assholes.
Yeah.
So that brings up another interesting point, which is this Meta is supposed to be platform agnostic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So any platform that carries the underlying code for Meta will be able to port and to move assets from chain to chain.
Mm-hmm.
So that now, when you're talking about um, physical and non-physical assets, it makes it interesting to see. That's like saying, hey, um, like I don't know how this would work, but I'm almost thinking like, hey, I'm gonna send you a banana if you're hungry, and like you'll
Mm-hmm.
like somehow like a banana will sprout up in your apartment. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Well,
that's
I could see it, kind of connecting with the rest of the economy. Like everyone, this last year was kind of like a use case for a lot of these techs. Like people weren't really, telecommuting to work. But we had a whole year and a half basically of people working from home and having to
mhm,
actually productivity go up. So I think that's also a factor into why they kind of decided to really lean into this technology. And
You,
yeah, and you can probably connect NFTs and metaverse to, let's say, like your food delivery apps or shopping apps, and
you know what I feel happened the last 2 years? It's like, let's just say that this was the big red flag that you always keep, right? No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
Let's just say this is a map, right? This is a
yeah.
map, and it shows everything kind of running in a very nice smoothly, right? Everything is
Hmm.
running, and then someone goes to the board and is like, okay, yeah, all right, now do it again.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of like what I feel like is just happening right now.
Yeah. No, for me, it's you always need that kind of period where things are completely shaken up. It's like bad things break and good things sprout from it. It's we had a lot of ways of things that we just did because that's the way we always did them. It's and now we have everyone started looking at their the way they work, why they work, and they kind of figure that things weren't working for them. It's so a lot of people moved from the larger cities and decided that hey, that job that I've been kind of slaving over wasn't really worth it. It's like I don't really need as
Right,
much as I thought I did.
right,
Yeah.
100%. And so these platforms, being platform agnostic, I guess, where they're going to have some sort of a common ground or a common space.
Hmm.
I guess they're calling it home spaces, kind of like desktops,
Yeah.
in which also will serve as a my understanding is it'll serve as a collaborative workspace. So it's almost like a virtual meeting room,
Hmm.
and so you all agree on where in the metaverse you're going to meet, and there's a game. There's a game called Second Life, but there's another one that's kind of like that, but where you can create different worlds, and
Yeah.
you can create literally like a business and open up shops, and people go and have coffee, and like
Yeah.
you're not really drinking coffee, you're just having virtual coffee, but hey, like it's out there, it already exists, and people don't even know about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how Decentraland works too, but that one's on blockchain. So yeah, we've also seen people investing heavily into digital land. It's a digital land rush right now. So people can
Right.
build whatever they want on it. And I think we talked about actually minting our own clothing. our
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely, yes. And for all you artists out there working on stuff, please contact us. We'd love to have you create some nice pieces of cool designs for us.
yeah, and
And
it's yeah, it's a good thing. Even if you're kind of skeptical about the technology, like why not? It's fun. You could put your stuff out there. There's a new kind of market for people to see your work, and yeah, it could be fun.
absolutely. And so on top of that, I mean, you're gonna have the home space, and I'm again, this is so early on, and there's no real uh in when you're developing things and you're creating stuff, like you would have an architecture of what you envision it's going to be, but I could imagine something like this doesn't really have that kind of a blueprint,
Hmm.
just because it's so early on that, I mean, even the technology that we've already done the research on and we know what it could be used on, which the majority of people have, like, they're barely understanding like the media and art aspect of it, but when it goes beyond that, it's like wow.
Yeah.
And so um with all with I forgot what I was going with that.
Well, it's I say like it's this is just the first step in a long process. It's like you're creating virtual worlds, but there also will be offline um, integrations with blockchain. So
Right.
it's like people yeah, it's great to get offline a lot. So people who are kind of skeptical of crypto, it's like they just kind of ignore it, and hope, and they think that if they just turn off the internet, it goes away. But it's actually coming to a place near you. So
Right, right. And this is a perfect example of Darwinism.
mm,
This is where, like, the evolution is happening right before your eyes.
yeah.
Like, we can no longer turn the other way and say that's not happening right there. Like, no, it really is.
Hmm. Yeah, so like if you're a fan of like cyberpunk, novels of the 80s and 90s, and it's like all this stuff that's happening right now was something that was speculated on even way back then. But like the thing that was missing was blockchain technology. It's like you
Right.
you needed to have like a distributed ledger. Before it's like, when I teach, basics of blockchain, it's still, it's like before, you have your digital, assets, but they're all on a server that's centralized. Someone
Right.
could delete it, and you wouldn't even know. But with
Oops.
blockchain, the revolution was, it's immutable. It's on the blockchain. You can see where it's been, where it was minted, and how much is on the network. And so this is the technology that makes everything else possible.
Right. And so, and now, and that brings us to the next thing, which is because we know that NFTs could be more than just artwork and media,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of brings in a lot of other things, which is where I think this is a part where it's really hard to wrap your head around, which is literally everything you could think of in existence
Yeah.
could be an NFT.
Yeah.
And I say that because your avatar is going to be an NFT in Meta.
Yeah.
And so your avatar is going to be a digital representation of you.
Exactly.
Um, and so that avatar is going to have clothing, they're going to have attributes, they're going to have skills, or they're going to have, I guess that's part of attributes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of that's going to be reflected upon the handler,
Yeah.
whoever is handling it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So so imagine now if we were once constrained to just the physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do physical and digital value. So you can make money, you can make value out of nothing with
Yeah.
Meta.
Yeah. Yeah. And to kind of piggyback on that, it's like basically everything in the economy and our society, it's run by centralized systems. It's like people are afraid of, like kind of like the social credit system of like China, and blockchain will have kind of similar social credit type thing, because it's your reputation on the blockchain. But it doesn't have to be nefarious or evil. You can do it in a way that respects your privacy and is much more reactive to actual conditions in the world and your actual ability to repay something. It'll be your own credit system. It's like our credit system now and financial system is really outdated and doesn't really factor in all the attributes that someone has that gives good outcomes when it comes financially. So yeah, it's like that.
Absolutely.
I think that's why people are really skeptical about it, because like we know that it's going to be integrated in other parts of the economy, and it's scary. So that's why I feel like more people need to be involved, is because like what we get in the end, it's reflective of the people who built it and the
Right.
interests that
Hmm.
speak up. So
Right.
yeah,
And I think you brought up a very interesting point there, because a lot of what I think people's skepticism is moving forward is the lack of privacy.
hmm
And so that's a very tough conversation to have, because we know how far it can get. How
yeah,
far is it now? I don't know. I know that I'm pretty certain that they're a lot further than what they're stating publicly.
yeah,
And so with that being said, it's like a lot of people are okay, and they go about their day-to-day lives with just, oh, okay, so I'm just being monitored by satellite and by traffic cams, and like now my TV has a camera,
mm,
and like all these things are just barely being, they're being subtly introduced into our lives.
yeah. And
Um,
algorithms know what you're thinking and what you want. It knows when you're hungry. It knows when you want to buy a banana.
Strangely enough, it
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
And so, we, and I think that's the problem. It's like people are like, oh, but who's going to control the data? Who's going to control that information? And and in a system like blockchain, it allows for you to be in control.
yeah, definitely.
And yeah, and I think that now the platforms that build these levers of control into it for the benefit of the users of the platform, and not the funders of the platform,
Hmm
um, I think uh, I think is going to give all of the platforms with ill interest or bad interest in mind a run for their money.
Yeah, yeah, because that's kind of uh, like we talked about this before. Is that like like everything all your concerns when it comes to like privacy and you know the kind of the ways that this technology can go wrong. There's ways it can go right if people are willing to work hard enough. And that's what's scary about the Facebook Meta is that they have access to your data. They have profile on you more than probably the government does. Or basically, they are the government. Um,
Actually, they are.
yeah, yeah. So it's like when they actually start getting into the blockchain field, they do have a head start when it comes to like what you want. It's because they have a lot of information on you. But the systems that are off Meta, Facebook Meta, other metaverse projects probably will have a better like level of security. You might not get served what you want as quickly, but you do have the ability to, like I said, own your own information and be in control of your information and your privacy. Not even that. Instead of Facebook being paid for your information, you can be paid for your information.
Right. Absolutely. And all of these concepts and ideas sound great. And then one begins to wonder, like, okay, so how are we supposed to manage all this? Like, how are we supposed to manage like our day-to-day lives and our virtual life?
Hmm.
I mean, that sounds like it's already hard enough with one life, you
Yeah,
know? So now you're talking about having them introduce AR and VR technologies into this, which I guess part of the I guess question or conversation is how can this improve our life, and will it cause is it going to disrupt more than it's going to fix, or is it just going to disrupt because there's a lot that needs fixing, and then ultimately if over time it'll just fix itself out? But I think what happens is, like, when you start getting into immersive technologies,
hmm,
you start tapping into the brain, into the psychology of the human.
yeah,
And so, yeah, like if you spend a lot of time on computers and you don't socialize with people, you're probably going to be socially awkward,
yeah,
and so, and now when you're dealing with AR and VR, it's like, I mean, I've heard stories, I don't know if they're true or not, and I have to fact check, but of people getting so lost in virtual reality that they forget to eat, that they don't take care of themselves, and
mm,
they have died, I guess, from what I
yeah,
heard.
yeah. Well, yeah, that is kind of a problem. Like kind of addiction to it was like technology and even gaming. It's like at least I'm 37. I think you're around the same age as me, right? Or a little younger. Yeah, at least
A
we
little
we
bit.
we had a time in the '90s where everyone was offline, so we at least got some of that. But yeah, there are people nowadays, like younger people, who they've always had their phones, and it's a big source of anxiety, or they don't remember a world without it. So it is concerning in that way. And like the AR stuff, like I don't think that as of right now, it's like it's the benefit you get from it, it doesn't outweigh the kind of like the hassle of it. It's I think we had like I remember like Google Glass, I believe their
Epic
AR,
failure.
yeah, glasses, because it's kind of a hassle to have it on your face all the time. It looks kind of lame.
Yeah.
So like I would say like AR is probably like another 10 years down the road, but the thing that is concerning is that in order for you to have like a robust AR system, you need a robust data collection system. So, like we said, like Facebook is a government, that's potentially part of it is like having data collection around the world, So that's concerning. And I believe like a part of our research, we did look into ways of doing that in decentralized ways to where only people who need access will have access, or who create the information will have access to that information, and do it in a way that uh, only who needs it or who has is willing to pay
The
for that
need
information
the
can
need
have
to
it.
know.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
need to know.
Yeah,
And if they don't need to know it because it's not like some sort of governmental or regulatory thing, then, and if they want to pay for it and
hmm,
you want to give it to them, then that's up to you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But yeah, like that's all conversations that we'll have when we get into the UCAT platform.
yeah, yeah. Because part of this podcast, I just kind of want to kind of reassure people is like, yeah, the potential looks very dystopian, but there are ways out of it. So that's what we want to kind of teach people is that we don't have to live in the matrix. We can find a different way.
Right.
and
So
and
for
we, and
every
we
time,
and we don't need to get rid of the technology to do it. We can still have technology, but still have that privacy.
absolutely, absolutely. As long as you don't let a bunch of assholes run wild doing it, then
Yeah,
and you have some responsible people that actually give a damn,
Yeah.
then there's hope for humanity.
That's why we're uploading this on YouTube rather than Facebook. Because, come on, Mark, sit down, shut up.
Yeah, right. Take notes.
Yeah, you've made enough money. Come on, just go away for a little bit. You got an
That's
island,
it.
so
I didn't know that. That's entirely too much. But not, but like the reason I brought up the AR and VR stuff is because as part of the whole creator economy, that in itself opens up another ecosystem or another eco stream
mhm.
by you being able to digitally embed artifacts into the ether.
Yeah, definitely.
You
And
know?
so it does bring, it kind of gets you out of the your room, into the real world, kind of like Pokemon Go. So
Right, right. And the cool thing, and we talked about this like 3, 4 years ago,
mhm.
was once we reach that stage where it's matured, we could both walk into the same room, but because of our levels of access,
Yeah,
maybe the decor of the interior would be different for you than it would be for me.
yeah. Or like that room could be connected to smart home devices, and you can open and shut windows if you want, open lock doors, and I can't. And you can,
Right,
if you want to, you can exclude me. He's like, hey, he's like, nope, lock it, and he's not allowed.
right,
So yeah,
right,
there's infinite potential. It's that's what's cool about this technology. So
right. It's what's cool, but it's almost like like kind of like tread carefully because I think with all this, like we're already going super fast,
mhm.
as it is now. And for you and I, we've already covered all this years ago.
Yeah,
So to see how slowly the transition's happening,
mhm.
like we're probably like you and I, the research we did, we're probably about 20, 30, even 50 years out
Yeah,
from being able to fully develop the systems like we have discussed,
mhm.
to be able to have the capacity to process that much data.
Yeah,
Like there's just a lot of things that has to happen for us to get there. But it's really exciting to see it like kind of molding and taking shape. Um, and Yeah, the next 5 to 10 years for sure are gonna be a wild ride.
definitely. Yeah, and again, I quite reiterate that if you're thinking about investing in blockchain, it's still really early. This is year one still. Basically.
Yeah, I mean it's still super early. I mean if there's BC and AD like we have now in our lifetime, like this is still BC in the crypto realm.
Yeah, yeah. I say like it's like finally the use cases are coming into fruition. So yeah, like
Yeah.
what was gonna be cool though is actually we probably shouldn't really go too much into like speculation on where this technology can go. We can leave that for other episodes.
Oh
But
man, that's
yeah,
we'll be here all night.
exactly. Yeah,
I mean that's what's cool about it though, is like you could literally like if you have the imagination
mhm.
and the motivation to like get off your lazy ass and do something about it,
Yeah,
like the possibilities are limitless,
yeah,
literally limitless.
yeah. And it was like, yeah, you mentioned earlier about creating value out of nothing, and that's what I kind of want to leave people with. Like you do see like these kind of meme coins and NFT stuff kind of skyrocket in value and drop, but a lot of stuff didn't exist even weeks ago. So for me, like it's kind of traditional investors and people thinking about money traditionally, they see that as kind of sketchy and weird, but I see it as a positive. It's like someone can create value, from their own mind. Like you don't have to
Right,
have access to capital. You don't have to have
right,
a degree from Ivy League university or connections. Like you can just using your own mind, your own abilities, you can create value that people will enjoy.
right.
It's and that's how it should be.
Yeah, and I think that you hit it right on the head, which is if there's anything that's happening now, it's our perceptions of value are shifting
Yeah.
because all we ever knew was what they've been spoon feeding us all these years,
Mm-hmm.
until we sit there and start looking around like, hey, like you know what? Yeah, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That's value.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's for me, it's kind of maddening. Like we lived through like the Great Recession and all that. It's like people's hyper focus on capital. Like just money in general. When there's other things that have value. It's like that for me that's what's maddening. It's like people focus their limited time on this earth on this structure that is basically created by people to facilitate the transfer of value. But
Right.
it shouldn't had never been the focus. But people making it the focus is what created a lot of problems in the world. You know, when it
Right.
comes to like feeding yourself, having a place to live, and enjoying, having some value to put towards having some kind of enjoyment in life.
So basically, like, yeah, they're creating all this value,
Mm,
and it is coming out of nowhere, but it's the understanding of the value that has to be there
yeah.
that we didn't have before.
Hmm.
So now we're able to quantify it. We're able to quantify value,
Yeah. Yeah.
and now as long as we're all agreeing, like, yep, that's value. Like just like we all agree, if you give me $1, like it's $1. You
Yeah.
know, we just have to agree.
Yeah. And now it's uh, so like we should think about value in a lot of different ways. Like when it comes to NFTs and like metaverse assets, those things have value because people can use them for things. It's not
Right,
just a dollar. Dollar can be traded for another dollar or for a price, for something else that people have decided that is worth that much. Like a
right,
tomato or or banana, like you said before.
right,
But now it's like, oh, I have this gun NFT that I play, use this game. This one's better than the other one, so I'm willing to pay this much because I'm spending my time in this game to try and enjoy it. So like
right,
that weird game asset has real world value. Like when it comes to like if you trade it for a dollar.
right. And now just to clarify, just because an asset holds value to
Mm.
Manny,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it has to hold value to everyone else. One of the things that I think is going to happen, and I don't think we've hit that threshold yet, but at some point, I believe we're going to be saying like, "Hey, this isn't worth that much,"
Mm.
and say, "Well, how are you to tell me how much my stuff is worth?"
Yeah.
Well, it's like at some point we'll know exactly how much value some things bring to our life, and whether or not we choose to pay for that value, that's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
But value is subjective. Like there's no way to quantify the real value of anything right now. That
Mm.
we just don't have enough systems in place to measure all the metrics that we would need to get an exact value metric,
Yeah. Yeah, because
you know?
one thing that I've been thinking a lot about is or we had this conversation before, that because like the world we live in now, we have everything we can. We live in a world of abundance. Everyone can have enough food and shelter, but we've created these systems of scarcity, and people who run those systems have an incentive to keep them that way. It's like, and so what I love about the technology, it is freeing for people. Because like they can take advantage of the value value comes from somewhere because it is always in the
Yeah.
end of the day kind of traded related to dollars, but a lot of that is coming on to blockchain systems and NFTs and coming out of nowhere because like
Well,
because it's more dynamic, I would say.
right. Well, and I want to just paint a real quick picture because it's not that it doesn't come from anywhere. And I'll give you a perfect example. Let's just
Hmm.
say like you take a company that has an enterprise that has distribution centers. And um, so you go in there and they've been running this system now, like McDonald's, for example, right?
Hmm.
McDonald's is McDonald's because McDonald's isn't a restaurant, McDonald's is a system,
Yeah.
right? And so they mastered that system, which is how they were able to replicate it and open up stores everywhere in the world. And so that system, after so many years of running with the with the same available technologies,
Hmm.
it doesn't know how to become more efficient. It can't. You're
Yeah.
maxed out. And then when you start getting into new technologies that kind of eliminates those barriers, that brings down those silos,
Hmm.
and you start experimenting with more fluid supply chain, more fluid ecosystem with transfers of monies, less monies being held up in trade financing,
Hmm.
um, and more quicker settlements. A lot of these things, um, it's not that the value is already there, but it's never been accounted for because it fell through the inefficiencies.
Yeah.
And so as you become to make things more efficient, you're going to be you're going to be honing in on the maximum possible or the best possible run you can make in your whole supply chain,
Hmm.
which is going to equate into value that was unaccounted for before.
Yeah.
So it's not that it just comes from nowhere. Like it's already there. It just has to be refined, and you have to extract it
Hmm.
by becoming more efficient.
Yeah. And I see like you're right. And kind of one of the problems recently is that, like, because our financial system prior to the invention of Bitcoin, it was like a race to that efficiency. So at some point, yeah, they become so efficient that they're really leaning on the workers. It's like to extract that efficiency. So, and productivity. So they're working more hours. Their pay is going down relative to inflation, and um, they start running into problems where people can't. There's so much value in the economy, and there's so much money, but it's always in the hands of people who are the beneficiaries of that efficiency rather than ones who create it.
Right,
So it created that imbalance. So now that we have new systems, a lot of that excess value is going into those systems.
right.
So and if you're
And
someone who kind of has forethought, you can be the beneficiary of that value.
absolutely take into account what you know about the world we live in now,
Hmm.
and start applying that into a virtual world, and bingo, there you go. You just got to work at it. It's
Yeah,
not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
yeah,
We're gonna get there.
yeah,
Just it's gonna take time. But if you start trying to fix those things, if you start forecasting these problems that you know that are gonna come up because of all the inefficiencies that exist now, then you're setting yourself up to succeed, during this transition period.
yeah,
Because this is just the transition period from one phase of work of living life to a different way of living life.
yeah,
But the transition's always bumpy.
definitely. Yeah, and for me, it's like I'm really excited about the future. Like I know there's a lot of cynicism, and I hate cynicism. So it's yeah, if you're kind of skeptical on it, like it's good to be skeptical, but continue to learn. It's like then hopefully you will see, like what how it could benefit your life.
Well, I'm sorry to cut you off right there,
Mm-hmm.
but
Let's go.
you said something key. Continue to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress this enough. Like at this point, at the rate that we are advancing our technology, we don't have the luxury of not trying to keep up. Like it will literally, we're gonna be within a matter of a few years, if we just try and shut everything off, like, oh, like whatever, it'll go away. Like you're gonna be in a whole new world in a couple of years, and you're not gonna know shit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, and
So
it kind of goes to what we're trying to accomplish with these podcasts, and soon with our UCAT YouTube channel. Like we're concentrating on education. So
right,
we're dedicating ourselves to this, and we try to make it as digestible as possible. So um,
right.
yeah, like, part of this podcast for me is to kind of learn how to speak um, or present better information, because I have all the knowledge I need, but I was lacking that. So um, yeah, so like I know how it is to I make an effort to present things in a clear and logical manner, to where anyone can benefit from it. Doesn't matter like which industry you're in. Like when we say the fourth industrial revolution, it's going to affect all industries. It's going to be the industry, and
Absolutely.
blockchain technology and metaverse technology is going to be kind of like uh, the
The
focal
fabric.
point. Exactly. Yeah, the communication network of the fourth industrial revolution.
Yep. And remember, you heard it here first, everyone.
Yeah.
So I think we covered a lot of the topics that we want to talk about. I know that with embedded artifacts comes also 3D art, which I'm really excited for.
Hmm.
Um, so all of you guys who like to tag up walls and stuff like that, guess what? You can do it now and not get in trouble.
Yeah. Cyberspace.
And cyberspace, exactly. Give someone a stencil.
Yeah.
And we talked about clothes, so we can create digital clothing for your avatars, and you can take that and you can create for all you people who collect shoes. You can have a collection of digital shoes. I know people who have like rooms full of shoes. I'm like, why do you like why? But hey, everyone has their own vice, right? Um, and then you could probably, I'm guessing you could even make attributes would definitely be an NFT. It depends on the platform now, everyone.
Hmm.
Everyone has different goals in mind with what they're creating their NFTs to be. I know we have our goal is to use NFTs as a means of representing acquired knowledge. So for anyone that wants to do like build digital clothes or artifacts, or to even participate from the very early stages of where we're at, this is an open call for you guys to kind of just reach out and communicate with us. And we'd love to hear about what you're working on, and to see if there's any way to maybe add some more value to what we're working on. And we just want to grow this, bigger than me, him, and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. It's beyond all of those guys. It's beyond everybody.
Mhm.
This is for everybody, and it's not just for our generation. It's for generations to come.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know.
I think that's everything we
Any
we set to discuss. So
Cool. Well, take care of yourselves and each other. We out.
peace.